Hi, my name is Jurss, and this is my presentation for Practicum 2 for DA5020 in spring of 2025. I'm going to start off talking about my database creation script. This took about an hour for me to complete, and it's fairly simple. I just start off by loading my packages and then creating a new database. I then am going to write some SQL expressions to create the tables. I'm setting a lot of these IDs as not null because it'll help me with debugging later. So if I'll know that my XML parsing is correct or not. I'm going to execute all of these, create table statements, and then disconnect from the database. So let's source that. It runs, I get my database file, and we can move on to the XML parsing. This took probably about 6 hours for me to finish. This was the most difficult part of the whole thing. There was just a lot to consider. There was a lot of null values that kind of caused a lot of problems, and I had to make some changes quite a few times. But I think it's pretty smart. I start out by loading my packages again, connecting to my database, and then I'm going to load my XML data, grab the root and the size. This area, I'm going to get all of the bed categories information, and I'm going to put that into a data frame. I'm deciding to use a data frame here because it's pretty small. It's a small table, so it's not a huge lift for memory and performance, and it's pretty simple to grab the categories and descriptions with XPath and then make a data frame and then write that to the database. This next part is going to be loading bed facts and facilities at the same time. Those tables are very big, well, much larger anyway, and loading them into memory as data frames would be a bit of a lift. It's probably not the best idea. So I'm going to iterate over the XML and kind of load it in chunks, but I'm going to load bed facts and facilities at the same time because they have the same source, so why iterate more than I need to? So here I'm going to iterate through starting with 2 to avoid the metadata. I'm going to iterate through all of the facility nodes. And then for each facilities node, I'm going to iterate over all of the beds, the bed categories that are in that facility. And I'm going to load this data frame I've made up here called df.bedfacts. So every time I start a new iteration, I get rid of all the rows in there. And then when we get into the bed types for each facility, I'm going to insert a row into bed facts for each type of bed for that facility. And it's going to have the IMS ID, the type of the bed, the category ID, which I'm grabbing from the bedcats data frame, because why make a SQL call if I don't have to? And then I'm going to deal with null values, and I'm going to grab those bed numbers. And I will iterate over all the beds and add the row to the bed facts data frame. Here, this is kind of interesting. I have to get rid of, if there's multiple rows that have the same IMS ID and the same cat ID, which is happening when I have multiple null cat IDs, I have to get rid of all but one of those rows because otherwise I get primary key errors when I try to insert into bed facts. To get the totals for the facility table, I'm just going to take the sum of the columns, the bed columns in df.bedfacts. If they're null, I'm going to write them into a null string so that when I insert them, that they'll insert correctly as a null value. And then the df.bedfacts table will contain only rows for the current facility, and I'm going to write all of those rows to the database. I'll continue iteration until it's done, and then I will disconnect. So I will source this, and I will be back in a few minutes. All right, that has finished running. It took about 6 minutes, just under 6 minutes to load everything. So let's go to the report. Same here, I start by loading my packages and connecting to the database. And then I make some SQL queries here. This first one is grabbing the total number of licensed and staffed beds and the average. And then I'm grabbing the amount of facilities where there's more than 100 beds. And then here I'm calculating the percentage of staffed beds using the data that comes out of this SQL call, because making another SQL call would be wildly inefficient when I already have the data in memory, and it's a very simple calculation. And then this displays that table with cable extra. I do some stuff to make it a little bit nicer using big mark comma so that my numbers will have comma separators. Cable classic is nice and clean. I don't really do anything with cable styling, but the bootstrap theme makes it look a little nicer. Make my header stick out more, and that's about it there. This next one, I'm grabbing the sums of all of the different bed types from facilities so that I can feed it into my pie chart. I have to do some changing here. I have to change the transpose the data frame and add a new column for the categories so that it's not row names, so that I can actually access it. And then this, sorry, this is the correct one. These are failures from earlier. But same thing, I have to transpose the data frame. And then this part actually is writing the plot, actually making the pie chart. Here I'm grabbing the breakdown of the beds across the different bed types. So I'm grouping by the cat.category, or sorry, the cat ID, same as grouping by cat.category, so that when I do my summations, I'll get a row for each category with those beds, and then display it with cable extra very similarly, just using some different bootstrapping options to make the table look a little nicer. This is grabbing the top 10 institutions with staffed beds. So I'm ordering by total number of staffed beds descending and only taking the top 10. Again, displaying it with cable extra in very similar manner as above. And then this is the most complicated, but still pretty simple. I just need to get the category, the name, and the maximum number of staffed beds. So I need to join everything to bedfax, with bedfax all the way on the left because I want all of those rows. So I'm going to join the categories to it so that I can map the cat IDs to the actual cat text, and then I'm going to join facility on IMSID so that I can get the facility names. I'm going to ignore null cat IDs because I don't want them to be treated as their own category, and I'm going to group by the categories so that I can get a row for each category with the top facility with the top number of beds, and then again displaying that table with cable extra very much like the others above. I will knit it, and we can take a look at the completed report. So this is the first table, and the inline markdown text, my pie chart, my bed breakdown by category, the top 10 facilities with the most staffed beds, and then the breakdown of the most staffed beds per bed type, which facility has the most staffed beds per bed type. And that's it. So thank you very much for watching. I should say, this portion took me about 2 hours to complete. So it really was the XML parsing that was the most difficult part of all of this, aside from getting this presentation to be short enough. But thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it, and have a good day.